The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at wrestlingwithjohners.com. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Wrestling with Johners, episode 311. And we've got an awesome guest for a Thursday evening. Been wanting to get this guy on the show for a while now, and it's finally happened. Now, I've got this straight from his Twitter bio. He is the toxic renegade, the nastiest man in professional wrestling. I'm going to introduce to you the current SWW Openweight champion, Septic Sid Oakley. Sid, how are you doing, my friend? Great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm good. I'm old and tired, but apart from that, I'm doing all right.
Oh, you should try being my age. It's not easy. I'm getting ever close to 50, mate. So I know.
Okay, you win then.
I know I do struggle to get up out of bed every morning, but great to have you on the show. And we are live, of course, across Facebook Live, across YouTube, across Twitch. And for anybody watching at home, you want to get in touch with the show, you want to ask Septic Sid Oakley any questions or any comments, you can do. Just send them through to us using your chosen device, and we do our very best during the course of this broadcast to bring up every single one. We do our very best. So please start sending your questions in now. But just a reminder of my recent guests. And today I'm going to bring up some pictures here of my past guest. Of course, Rain Leverkusen joined me in June. Wonderful guest. And look, so fairly new to the business. Only been training for the last 2 years, performing for the last year and a half. Go and check that one out and hear Rain Leverkusen's full story. The very first interview that I had in the month of July was Connor Mills, and recently becoming the unified or the undisputed, cruiserweight champion of Rev Pro. But we heard all about Connor Mills' story. Go and check that one out. That was my first interview of the month of July. And then, of course, other recent interviews include British wrestling legend James Mason, somebody that's performed Southwest Wrestling, All-Star Wrestling, all over the country, and British legend. And then more recently, Sam Bailey, one of the coaches at Future Shock up in Manchester. Please go and check that one out. That's one of my favourite interviews of all time, and it's been very warmly received by reviewers out there. But Sam Bailey was a fantastic guest. More recently, Joel Redmond popped onto the show, his second appearance as a guest on Wrestling with Johners. This time round, we spoke about the debut show for All-Star South Wrestling, their first show taking place in Salisbury, the 30th of July. And we got a little bit of an update from Joel on what he's been up to in the last couple of years. And just 48 hours ago was my most recent live interview with Taj. And Taj, the promoter of Tidal Championship Wrestling up in Huddersfield, came on to hype up their next show, but also to talk about her career so far as a wrestling promoter and her awesome fandom within pro wrestling. And then, of course, after Sid Oakley, next Monday, I've got Nathan Angel coming onto the show. And if my slides will actually come up and work, but here he is, Nathan Angel, 20 years old, one of the hottest prospects in the Southwest, being trained also by Joel Redmond at All-Star South. And Nathan, like I say, he's going to be a hot prospect. He's going to be breaking out all over the country very, very soon. And we'll get to hear his story so far on this coming Monday. But Sid, a few names there you're probably familiar with. And like I say, I think Nathan Angel is going to be a fantastic interview also. But great to have you on the show. And the first thing I want to talk about, Southwest Wrestling, a company that I've got good relations with. And I know you have a long and storied history with Southwest Wrestling. And you are their current Openweight champion, my friend. So congratulations. However, you recently won a triple threat at the Trinity Centre in Bristol. I think it was in April, so probably getting on for a few months now, where you officially became the champion of a title that you've been carrying around as the unofficial champion for 12 months before that, my friend. So
I know I had to hold that bloody thing for 12 months before I finally got recognised as the champion.
But tell us a bit about that, because that's the reason why I wanted to start with that is because it's a really unique story, a really unique storyline, and a fantastic payoff for the fans in Bristol, and a great culmination of that kind of year-long story to officially become the Openweight champion. So tell us a bit about it. How does it feel to finally be recognised as the official champion?
Well, First of all, like that's what I really liked about it. I really enjoyed the story of it because Pete, who runs Southwest, he's always been really good to me. He gives you a lot of freedom to sort of control your narrative with the storyline. So I was really proud of that particular one because it was me, Nico, Tate, sort of thinking about it and coming up with it. And what made it really interesting was that you had Nico, who's just this out and out baby face, great good guy, and you've got Tate, who's, in my opinion, the best bad guy in the country right now. And I've been playing a bad guy for a long time, but I was getting them kind of mixed reactions. I've been around Southwest so long, I think I sort of built up that sort of equity with the fans where, you know, even though I was a bad guy, they were kind of liking me. So I slid right into the middle of that really well as the kind of tweener. Yeah, do you know what I mean? So, so it was an interesting dynamic between the three of us for that storyline.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of backtrack a little bit, and of course, Nico was the first ever SWW Openweight champion. I think he won that in December of 2021. We're going to talk a lot more about Nico very, very soon. And then, of course, you fast forward to mid 2022, and I think you have a Camden Street fight with Callie Gray. That same night, Nico defends his championship against Tate. Tate wins the championship by nefarious heel means, and then enter Septic Sid. So tell us about that evening, and for any of my listeners or viewers that aren't too familiar, that's kind of where the program with the Openweight Championship started for yourself.
Yeah, it did really, but there was a backstory to that because I believe the year prior, me and Nico had been in this really like big feud with each other that kind of got blown off in a last man standing match at the Frog and Fiddle, one of my favorite matches that I've ever had. And but it was the feud ender, but I always like to think about the next thing. So I was talking with Nico and I was like, at the end, let's do something where, you know, we get the fans just thinking, oh, what's going to happen next? So he beats me and like, I'm down for the 10 count, but at the end I'm screaming at him and I'm going, I effing hate you. And he goes, I effing hate you too. And it was this great little moment after the bell. And just that little interaction between me and Nico kind of left the door open for something in the future, which is what I wanted to do. You know, classic worker. You know, get myself future bookings and
absolutely.
But that's what I wanted to do. So it was Nico kind of went off. He won that SWW title, and I'd kind of been having this match and that match, and yeah, I wrestled Callie Gray that night, which I really enjoyed. But it made sense for me to come out at the end. It wasn't like out of nowhere. People kind of knew the history between me and Nico's characters in that situation. So it fit quite well. I was quite happy with it.
Absolutely. I'm just going to bring up some pictures here of Septic Sid with the championship. And there we go. It's a match made in heaven, or maybe a match made in hell, some might say.
But what a handsome dude.
Absolutely. Beautiful championship, I've got to say, for a wonderful company. And of course, after that, one thing that kind of made me chuckle, you holding the SWW Openweight Championship unofficially, was that you even defended it once or twice. I'm not sure, that's a rather kind of bizarre thing that I don't think I've seen anywhere else, is that obviously Nico's out the picture, Tate is the official champion, but there you are, having stolen or taken the championship, and you're now defending it unofficially. So how did that transpire? Because I know you had one match against Josh Holly, didn't you? Back in the Frog and Fiddle. But that's kind of a rather unique wrinkle in the storyline.
Well, the reason that came about was that was kind of more it was more logistic than anything else. Like I'd like to tell you that that was the big elaborate plan, but you know, Nico and Tate are so talented. They're getting booked all over the country, so their dates are very limited. But we wanted to keep this story going. So I kind of took that on my back myself, and I kind of said to Pete, the promoter, I said, well, what if, like, while they can't do these dates and, you know, they're doing other things, why don't I, like, it's such a Septic Sid thing to do, to be like, I'm the champion and I'm going to defend it. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what we, what I wanted to do with that. And I do think it added like another little wrinkle into it, because then when they came back and they were available to do shows that we did, you know, Nico's annoyed because at the end of the day, I've stole this title, which is rightfully his. And Tate's even more annoyed because not only have I stole the title off him, but I've been defending it as well, like I am the champion. So it was just good. I thought it was good drama, and it worked out quite well.
Yeah, very clever booking, and like I say, it worked on so many levels. And like I say, Josh Holley got what would have happened if Josh would have won, being as you weren't the official champion? How would that have worked? Had you have thought that through?
Well, I didn't think that through because I knew I was going to win, but
fair enough.
but what I will say to you is, if Josh had won, that would have been his problem then.
Good point.
You would have got my spot.
Absolutely. We bring up their pictures again. I love the SWW working shows at the Frog and Fiddle. It's such a unique venue. It's really, really tight. Most of the fans have stood up, but it helps to add to that atmosphere that only Southwest Wrestling can provide. And then, of course, we jump to the match itself. Originally advertised as a ladder match, and I don't think there was enough ladders in the near vicinity, or nobody had brought enough ladders for it to actually be a ladder match. There were so many unique spots, and let me just recall, I think there was a wet floor sign, there was walking crutches wrapped in tinsel, there was a hubcap that was used as a frisbee, which really popped me when I saw that.
It popped me when Nico threw it at me, because I didn't know that was going to happen. So thanks, Nico, for that.
And I'll tell you what, he's a good aim. He's a very good aim. But and then, of course, somewhere from under the ring, you found some jumper cables, which first of all, I think you attached to Tate's nipples, and then to the private parts of both Nico and Tate. And then you kind of, I don't know, I think you kicked the cable or ran into it, which caused them extra discomfort. But that match was as hard as it was, and as dramatic as the story was. It was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
It was probably the funnest match I've ever had.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I kind of felt like there was no pressure going into it, and pressure's always good when you're performing, or I feed off it anyway. But that night was different because, like you said, we had so many different props to be able to use and to our advantage. Like the whole thing was just, it was like, it reminded me of like when you play a SmackDown game when you're 12 years old, you're playing SmackDown Here Comes the Pain or something, and you're pulling stuff out from under the ring, and it was like a real life version of that. So it was honestly the one word that I can use to describe that match was just fun. I had a great time. I had a ball.
Absolutely. And one more picture I'm going to flash up, and these are some fans' pictures, but there you are, having just been presented with the Openweight Championship. Not that it was out of your grasp for very long, but I mean, on a personal level, Sid, to officially become a champion, the Openweight champion in Southwest Wrestling, a company that you've been associated with and performed for over the last 4.5 years, that must feel pretty special for you.
I don't want to sound like I'm ungrateful, because I'm not. Like I appreciate every opportunity that's given to me, but I've always I'm happy that, you know, they've put the trust in me to have the title, but I'm much more concerned about the story rather than the accolade, if that makes sense. I don't want to come across as ungrateful, because I'm not at all. But the title is kind of secondary to what we're do it. I don't care if I win or lose or draw or whatever. If it's a good story and it's entertaining, that's what's most important to me anyway. Like you don't see Alan Rickman kicking off because he died at the end of Die Hard. You know what I mean? Like it's all part of the story. So the title was nice, but it was secondary to the story that I had in my head and what all three of us wanted to tell.
Absolutely. And just going to flash up another picture of you with the championship there. Of course, we got a chance to talk in a backstage promo, and we're going to talk more about promos a bit later because there's something that kind of really, really, like I say, is another special part of your character. But I want to talk a bit about Nico because added into all of this story, of course, is Nico Angelo, the first ever openweight champion, former champion, of course. You first faced Nico in a Southwest Wrestling ring in 2019. But then 2021, after pandemic, you have a series of matches, probably 3 or 4 really, really amazing matches, culminating in that last man standing match that you referred to earlier. And just a couple of pictures I'm going to flash up here. There's a picture of yourself and Nico, probably in better times, I'm not sure, but you both look like you've had a hell of an evening. But back at the Frog and Fiddle, barn burner, Southwest Wrestling, it was a hell of a show, a show-stealing match. All sorts of weapons. Definitely saw thumbtacks there. What sort of implement in your hand there you've got? I'm not entirely sure. There's blood, chaos. And that was a culmination of that wonderful series of matches that you had with Nico Angelo. And then, of course, obviously 2022 happens, the whole situation with Tate in the Openweight Championship, and then, of course, that triple threat at the Trinity Centre in April. But I think Nico has to go down as one of your fiercest, most special rivals you've had in your career so far, Sid.
He's definitely my best rival in terms of storyline, and also how different we are. I always like to think of it like I said before, he's such a great good guy. It makes it easy for me to be a great bad guy against him, because I know he's going to go out there and the crowd are going to be behind him, and it makes my job a lot easier. And when my job's a lot easier, that makes it more fun, because then I can really sink my teeth into it, because I know whatever I'm going to do to Nico, the crowd are going to react, and that's what you want. But yeah, he's a good friend in real life as well, which always helps. But yeah, to be honest, there's nobody really. There's very few people that I'd rather be in the ring with than Nico. He's probably going to message me and have a go at me for putting him over so much. But it's true. It's true. Like, you know, and a lot of people will say that about Nico as well.
Yeah, and when you're kind of in there with a person, with a character, with an athlete like Nico, truly a unique individual and one of a kind, and certainly one of the best cruiserweights in the UK, one of the best wrestlers, full stop, in the UK. When you're in there with a man like that, as a performer and as a character, as a competitor, what does he bring out of you on the other side of the ring? What does he bring out of you? Because I'm sure each opponent you step in the ring with brings something different out of you, but being in there with someone like Nico, considering how talented he is, what does he bring out of you in particular?
Well, I hold Nico to a certain standard, as I'm sure he does with me. And I'm not saying I'm on the same standard as him. Like, he's one of the best in the country, but when we're together, we know the level that we can perform at, and anything below that is going to be subpar. So I feel like we just bring it a bit more, and maybe that's the fact that we're friends as well, and you know, you hit your friends harder. But I think we've got a sort of unspoken respect where we really hold each other to a standard that we need to reach. And yeah, we just bring it. We bring it together, and I honestly, this might sound big-headed, but I don't think me and Nico have ever had a bad match, in all honesty.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, from everything I've seen, I can back that up 100%. And the last time you alluded to it earlier, but the last time we actually met and spoke was here in Exmouth, the Exmouth Pavilion, a very unique six-man. Of course, yourself there with Josh Holly, teaming with Josh Holly and Joey Seven against on the other side of the ring. You've got Flynn Burden, Little Legs, and Kurt's reign, of course, and a very unique match, a really fun, entertaining match for the fans inside the Exmouth Pavilion. Here's a few shots from afterwards, of course, because this is the most intriguing thing that happens. Your team kind of broke down, it imploded between yourself, Josh, and Joey. The three of you gave an Oscar-worthy level promo afterwards. It really was absolutely fantastic. One of the best promos of that weekend. Tell us about the match, because very, very unique. And like I say, it might be more of a comedy match, possibly because Little Legs was in there. But that looked like a lot of fun. It was very well received, and of course, it led to the implosion of your team afterwards.
Yeah, it was a really fun match. It's hard when you've got six guys to plan. The planning was harder than the actual match. Not that any of the other guys were difficult or anything, but obviously you got six very creative people that all want to get their ideas in and want the match to go a certain way, and you've kind of got to meet people halfway like you do in every match. But when you've got six people, and not only six people, but six people that are all very creative and all want to tell a story, that can be a bit chaotic to plan. But you get to like an even playing field, and then when it's planned, when we were in there, it was just fun. Like, don't get me wrong, like I prefer singles matches personally, just because you kind of only got to worry about yourself. I find when I'm in multi-man matches, I don't give my best performance because I'm always looking at other people. Not that they're going to do anything wrong, but it's just, that paranoia in my head of, I hope he gets there at this time, and I hope he comes in and does his spot all right. Like that's my own thing. That's my own thing.
You're probably not alone in that mindset, to be honest with you. You're probably not alone in that mindset.
Yeah, probably not. I feel bad saying it because it's like I'm jipping the guys that I'm in there with, but it's not that at all. It
gives you more to think about, doesn't it, when you don't need that extra? Yeah,
exactly. So I feel like in matches like that, I come down because I'm not fully in Septic Sid headspace, because I'm thinking quite logistically about how the match is going. But saying that, it was a super fun match, and I didn't even know we were going to do a promo afterwards. I come back and I think I saw you, and you were like, promo, and I was like, oh, okay then. And
I get everybody. It's like, come on.
Well, yeah. And that's what I love though, because I feel like you said very kind words about the promo, and it was good piece of material to my standard anyway. But I liked it, but it was off the cuff. Nobody planned anything. We were just going off interaction with each other. I didn't know what Josh was going to say. I didn't know what Joey was going to say. And the same for those guys. They didn't know what each other was going to say. And Josh said his bit and he nailed it. Joey said his bit and he nailed it. And then I was there like, right, I've got to deliver now. I'm the final note on this. And I sort of went off the cuff, but you could, when you watch that promo, my hand's shaking because I'm literally like, I can feel it. I can just feel it. But it was good. It was fun.
Absolutely. And I think it's already available to watch, certainly on Southwest Wrestling's social media pages, and I think also on their YouTube. So go and check it out. A really, really fun promo and a great match. And just bringing up this picture one more time, do you think, as the SWW Openweight champion, we're potentially looking at your two next opponents, your two next challenges? I know you've been in the ring with Josh on a number of occasions. I'm not too sure how many times you've worked Joey Seven, but that could lead to a couple of interesting defenses, surely.
I certainly hope so. Yeah. I've worked Josh like countless times. Like Josh is probably my best friend, like in the business away from the ring as well. Like we're such different personalities, but whenever we get in there, like everything seems to click and we're on the same page and we know each other's move sets and we know each other's characters, and that's all you want at the end of the day, isn't it? You want an easy working day, and whenever you work with Josh, or whenever I work with Josh, sorry, it's an easy working day. I've never actually worked Joey, but I would love to in a singles capacity, just because of the dynamic.
He's a big dude, isn't he?
He's big, he's handsome, he's built, he's everything I'm not. I'm short, stumpy, ugly, but like but that works well. Do you know what I mean? Like,
well, you say that. There's a certain Snowy Oakley that's watching us live via Facebook and sent in a message. How come you're so good looking, Sid? Do you take after your father?
No, well, like I'm not that ugly. I'm not that ugly. I'll say that. That is my dad. Thanks, Dad. But like, I put myself down there, but I'm definitely better looking than my father. I hope, anyway.
Thanks for watching, Snowy. And this person's name won't come up either. By the way, if you're watching this via Facebook Live and you want to send through a question, please go to streamyard.com/Facebook. That's streamyard.com/Facebook first. And then once you've done that, it will automatically allow us to bring up your icon picture and your name. But very similar to the last comment, this is from a gentleman called Scott Thomas, who is a ring announcer in the South Wales. I know Scott. He announces for Immortal Wrestling. But Sid is an outstanding talent and one of my favourite performers to announce, regardless of the promotion I bump into him on. My question is, where does he see himself in a year from now? So great question, Scott. How would you answer that one? Where do you see yourself? Or where would you like to see yourself?
Well, I'd like to see myself, earning lots of money, basically, but is the truth of it. But I'm really sorry. I'm gonna have to give like a non-answer with this, because I try not to think about stuff like that. I need to be present about what I'm doing. Me personally, I feel like if I start thinking about future things, my mind unravels, and despite what my friends might say, because sometimes I do come across as a bit arrogant when we're having banter and stuff, like, but I'm my biggest critic, so I don't want to think about what's coming in the future. Like, what I do now is good. It's always the next match for me, the next match and the next story, and that's where I like to keep my mind frame, because otherwise I'll disappoint myself whatever I do.
What we do want to see is plenty of open weight championship title defenses, successful title defenses. But that's just from my own fans' perspective anyway. But now, am I right in thinking you are based in South Wales then, Sid?
Yeah, I live in Cardiff.
So I mean, over the last year or so, I mean, you've performed for the likes of the Outcast Wrestling Club, which I think is a fairly new promotion. Obviously, Slam Masters, New Wave, Wrestling Society, when they ran a show in Cardiff not long ago, and of course, you're on the doorstep to SWW all across the southwest of the UK, of course, of England. But I mean, you are based in Cardiff, in South Wales, of course, and it's a busy little hub of wrestling promotions and fantastic training schools. And once again, I believe it's certainly becoming the hotbed, once again, of British wrestling, and a place to be for new up-and-coming wrestlers and for experienced performers who wants to get on some good shows. But you're obviously having a whale of a time over there.
Yeah, I'm loving being a city boy. I grew up in Wiltshire, in a very small little village, that kind of village with like the post office and the bus comes through once a week kind of thing. So I moved to Cardiff to train at Dragon Pro. That's why I moved. But I love it. I've been here 5 years now, and I'm liking, everything at my doorstep. I can, go get a coffee at 2 a.m. and like the things I couldn't do when I was younger. So yeah, it's great. I love living in Cardiff. I think it's a great city. And like you said, more importantly, I truly believe this. I might be biased, but I think South Wales at the minute is the biggest hotbed for wrestling at the minute. You've got New Wave, Attack run a lot here. Obviously, you've got your SWWs and your Chaos just over the border. Like I really think this is the place to be. And that wasn't necessarily the case when I moved here. But I'm glad that it's transitioned that way.
Absolutely. And I want to focus on a couple of promotions and Creation and Slam Masters, purely because some of the matches that you've had in the last year or so, and possibly some more of your highlights of the last year, certainly against Charlie Sterling and Michael Oku for Creation, and man like Darius for Slam Masters. 3 top names on the UK scene doing some tremendous things up and down the country and with some of the biggest promotions. And you've got to face those 3 talents in particular in the last 12 months. Some pretty top names there, and I'm guessing some major highlights from your last 12 months.
Yeah. I mean, like the 3 names you just mentioned, like they're all great, aren't they, for different reasons. The one I probably, not that I didn't enjoy wrestling Charlie or Darius, but when I wrestled Ojmo, that was really personal to me, because it was not long after we come back from COVID. It was for my friend's promotion, Billy Hayes, who ran Creation Pro, and I really felt like I had something to prove, and I felt like I could get in there and hang with Ojmo. And not only that, but I had added pressure because the week before he went and had a 5-star rated match with Will Ospreay.
Amazing.
Thanks, Dave Meltzer.
Yeah, a little bit to live up to there.
I went up to him backstage before we went out, and I went, "You probably get 3 stars out of me if you're lucky." just being humble, but we went out there, and that was the first time me and Michael have ever touched. We've never trained together, we'd never worked together before, not in anything, not battle royals, tags, anything. And so that was a particular career highlight for me, because I was really proud of that match. And then afterwards it got put on the Defend Indie Wrestling spotlight as like a match of the week or a match of the month or something. And we were talking about titles earlier on. They're the things that matter to me. You know, that really meant a lot to me, because after COVID, I was going through a lot of self-doubt, as were many people, and that kind of solidified, you know, yeah, I am okay at this. I can do this.
Absolutely. Moving ahead a little bit, and I want to talk a bit about the Septic Sid character and persona. And it's definitely one of them larger than life characters that really kind of jumps off the page and straight into your face. And I really want to know what sort of influences there are behind the character, behind the persona. What makes him tick? Who is Septic Sid Oakley?
Well, like, the character's very, very important for me. Because I'm like wrestling wise, like I do hold myself to a standard, but I can't do the crazy stuff like a Shane Hooker can, who's just like, Shane is just insane in what he can do in the ring. And yeah. I'm not technical like a Danny Jones. Like that's not my bag. So for me, character is everything, because that's what I'm good at. So that's what I focus on the most. Not that I disregard those other things. I'm always working to get better, but character is really, really important to me. And that character was sort of, it's kind of, it's a bit like therapy in a way for me. Septic Sid is, you know, the darkest aspects of me, really. Personified is the best way I can put it. Not that I was ever that bad, but
yeah. Well, I was going to ask my next question while I'm just bringing up these slides. My next question was, you know, how much of the man behind the character is in the character of Septic Sid himself? I mean, is there? They always say that it's kind of like the best characters, the best gimmicks are the person turned up to 11, but how much, or are there many elements of Sid that are kind of true to life or true to the man behind the character?
Yeah, absolutely. Like like Septic Sid he's the devil on my shoulder, you know. He's what I could be if I went the wrong path. Not that I would ever want to be that, but like I kind of looked at the worst aspects of my own personality and molded it into this heel character. But what I think is with the Sid character is he's kind of like he's misunderstood. You know, he's not an inherently bad guy. It's his surroundings that have made him like that, and that's something that I kind of like related to myself a lot. Like I made up this whole narrative myself, but it helps me tune into that character. And a lot of people don't know this because backstage, like I'm laughing, joking, and I love being around shows and I love being around all my friends and doing, you know, fake fighting for a living. But about an hour before I wrestle, I really do concentrate and get into that mind frame of the character. Like that's very important to me.
Yeah, and would you say, how would you say that the Septic Sid character has maybe changed or evolved or grown up over the years? Have you seen a change in the way that you deliver the character from, say, 3-4 years ago through till now?
Yeah, definitely. I think like when I first debuted him, I was just trying to be like the biggest heel ever. But as you play a character more and more and more, and especially the same character, you know, it does develop. And I think I like to think that I'm a nice person. And I think sometimes that, you know, it started to shine through with Sid, like what I said earlier with SWW, like the people started cheering me. Do you know what I mean? And maybe it's familiarity, maybe it's that, but you know, I like to. There's sort of a oh, I don't know how to say it, like like a vulnerability to the character, you know, that I really, and that's where you tap into people's emotions, and that's the kind of stuff I like.
Absolutely. I'm just going to bring up a few more pictures, and there we go. One thing that's always kind of by your side or in your hand is a bottle of JD, bottle of Jack Daniels, and there he is, and taking a swig there. But you know, kind of tell us a little bit about that, because obviously that's, you said that, you know, Sid is what you could be if you tapped into your darker side, but kind of the alcohol element, the JD element, is that something that did it start off that way, or is that something that's been added to the character? And what's the thought process behind that?
Well, at first I just wanted to use it as a prop. I just thought it would be a good prop, and it suited the character. You know, this guy that's, you know, drunk at the end of the bar. Do you know what I mean? He's always got a bottle in his hand,
Right.
or yeah, like, so it started out as a prop, but maybe subconsciously it was, you know, me sort of manifesting what I was going for. Because, like, a lot of people know this, it's not a secret. Like, I've had problems with substance abuse and like alcohol in the past, and it's gone up and down. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. I'm at a good place now. But I kind of, yeah, for Sid, it's a crutch. He needs it. That's what makes him Sid. And I felt that a lot myself in real life. So, you know, that whole bullshit about art imitating life kind of thing. But
Gotcha.
yeah,
Gotcha.
that was it. I didn't explain
Absolutely.
that as clearly as I would like to, but
No, let's talk about your promos, because we alluded to it earlier, and there was obviously that that group promo, that off the cuff promo at Exmouth, and of course you did a promo with me after officially becoming the Openweight Championship champion back in April. But I mean, there's obviously an art to delivering a promo, and sometimes you could give it 5-10 minutes thought before going out there and hitting the mic, or like I say, sometimes it is off the cuff, but you and your character, it just seems to come so natural. And is it something that you've always been quite natural at, or something you've had to work at in terms of delivering an interview or delivering a promo?
Like you can always improve, and one of the main things that I've always had good feedback about in my career is the way I can talk and my promos and stuff like that, which I'm really grateful for. But there's always room for improvement. But to be honest, it's always just come quite naturally to me. I know what I'm going to say. I know how to get the point across, and I'm so in that character that it's not even Craig speaking, it's Sid speaking, you know. So that comes quite naturally and easy.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a trip in the Wayback Machine, and let's go back to when you were a younger wrestling fan. How did wrestling first enter into your life? What was going on at the time in your life, and kind of how did it grab you?
Wrestling, like, and this is going to sound cliche as fuck. Sorry about the F-bomb, but
no, I said it was fine. Carry on.
Wrestling is literally my earliest memory.
No way.
Yeah,
wow.
The first thing I remember, and I can't even, I've seen it loads now looking back, but my first sort of image in my mind of sort of, you know, waking up and being live in the world was seeing Shawn Michaels jump off a ladder on Razor Ramon at WrestleMania 10. That's my earliest memory. And I used to say to my dad, like, oh, can you put the fighting on? Can you put the fighting on? And he'd put it, I just called it the fighting, and he'd put it on, and it just went from there. But I was probably about three and a half.
Oh, amazing. And obviously Septic Sid is a big, larger than life character. Were you drawn to the big characters when you were younger, or maybe, you know, a few years on? What sort of characters were you a fan of back in the day?
Well, I'm very much a product of my time, because I started watching in 1994. So my favorite wrestlers are Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. So who are obviously the top guys from that 94 to 97 time period, you know. So they're my two guys. They're the ones that I gravitated towards. And in all honesty, I'd like to think that if I started watching in another time, they'd still be my favorites, just because they're such great workers and everybody aspires to have the careers that they've had. But if I'm being really honest with myself, if I started watching in 2007, my two favorites probably would have been Randy Orton and Cena, you know. And nothing against them guys, just I was very much a product of my time. Shawn and Bret were the two top guys, and they're who I followed.
Yeah, and I mean, and by the way, we've had a ton of questions come through, and I will be reading them all out. So if you do have any questions for Septic Sid, please send them through. We've got plenty of time. We will do our best to read them out during the course of this live interview. Keep them coming. But I mean, continuing with your wrestling fandom, how did your wrestling fandom evolve, and when did you find or become a fan of indie wrestling?
Very late. Very late. Like, even though I loved wrestling and that was my thing, like I was the kid at school that was the wrestling guy. You know, Craig likes wrestling. That was my thing. That was my gimmick, if you want to call it that. But it was only really, so I trained for a very brief period when I was 15 for about 3 months at 4FW in Swindon. And that was the first time that I got woken up to, oh, there's other stuff apart from WWE and WCW, which is all I knew, just what was on telly.
Yeah.
And it is weird in a way, because I was such a fan. I don't know why I didn't try explore other options, but I just didn't. I guess I was content with what I was watching. So
yeah, absolutely. And was there always a desire from yourself to one day want to become a pro wrestler? Talk us through that kind of mindset and that thought process of, you know, when the thought first occurred, and how you kind of followed that up.
Straight away.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, straight away I was like, that's what I'm gonna do. Like, I'm gonna be a wrestler.
Yeah.
Right.
You mentioned. Go ahead.
My whole family, like, when I was growing up, Craig, what are you going to be when you're older? I'm going to be a wrestler. I'm going to be a wrestler. I'm going to be a wrestler. That's all it was. But, you know, you get older, life gets in the way, you get a bit jaded by things, and you sort of think, oh, that could never happen. But it was right away for me. That's the only goal that I ever thought about.
Yeah. And you mentioned you trained very briefly at a young age at 4FW in Swindon, just down the road from me. And like I say, then 4 or 5 years, well, let's say 4 or 5 years ago, I think we're probably talking longer than that, actually, 2016, you started training with Dragon Pro. So what made you, after that little bit of time away, a little bit of absence from the sport, what made you want to kind of dive back into it and train in South Wales with Dragon Pro?
Well, what happened was I trained for that very brief period.
Yeah.
With my friend Clay McLeod, who was part of Ring Crew Express as well. We went to school together, and he was into wrestling, and we decided to do it. But at the time, we were 15. You know, we had GCSEs going on, and you know, his parents were going through a bad breakup. My parents were going through a bad breakup. Like, life just got in the way. So we said, right, let's just get college or university out of the way, and then we'll come back to it. That was the goal.
Right.
But then, you know, things happened, and I remember it was coming up to my 25th birthday, and 25 was quite a pivotal, like I'm a quarter of the way to 100, and I haven't done what I always said I was going to do. And it kind of hit me like a lightning bolt, like it's now or never, even though 25 isn't very old, but it really hit me in that way. So I was like, right, I need to do this now. I need to do this now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah,
and I mean, Dragon Pro, they're renowned across the UK and further afield for producing some of the best talent you know, the UK has ever produced. And now we know them as New Wave. Of course, Brendan White's kind of took over Dragon Pro. He's now running that wonderful group there in Newport, New Wave. But I mean, working under some of the coaches and some of the trainers and some of the guys involved with Dragon Pro back when you joined them 2016, 2017, that must have been a very mind-blowing and eye-opening experience for you.
It was a good experience. Like,
yeah.
I've been at another school before, and I worked a match with Wild Boar, Mike Hitchman and Mike Bird, and they took me aside afterwards with McLeod, my tag team partner at the time, and they said, like, you know, if you guys ever want to come train with us, like, feel welcome. It's just like an open invitation. And I took them up on that offer because I enjoyed working them so much. I was like, yeah, that would be cool to go train with these guys. So that's what I did. And as soon as I went there and started training there was no turning back. It was just, the training was so good. Everything was so professional. I made great friends. Yeah, it was. That's how it all started.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk about somebody that's been quite pivotal to your wrestling career, and certainly in them first few years, and that's Dani Luna. And your kind of your in-ring partnership, your professional wrestling partnership with Dani. And I think you teamed on a couple of occasions, certainly for Dragon Pro and maybe one occasion for Attack. You accompanied her to the ring for many of her matches, including when she won the Maiden of Chaos Championship for Pro Wrestling Chaos, of course. I think you accompanied her to the ring for a few matches for Southwest Wrestling as well. But I think yourself and Dani Luna were kind of intertwined, certainly in their first few years, and were quite pivotal to your growth as a performer, to her growth as a performer, both kind of coming up in the business at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dani Luna, like, is still one of my closest friends in the business. Like, we started together, and I think when you start somewhere, you're always going to have that kind of like bond with somebody, that friendship bond. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've come up through the ranks, you've dealt with the same bullshit and all that stuff. And yeah, when we started doing the Sid and Dani gimmick, that was basically us trying to think of, right, how can we get on shows? What can we do? What's a gimmick that will work? What's a gimmick that people haven't seen before? And I remember one night I was watching Sid and Nancy, the Gary Oldman film about Sid Vicious, and I went, "Oh, me and Chloe could do that." Do you know what I mean? And like, we're close enough as friends that I know that it would have worked. We would have had that chemistry, in the ring as well. So yeah, that's how it happened. And she came to Dragon Pro the same time as me, and well, look what she's gone on to do now. Like, it's pretty incredible.
Absolutely. And like I say, some of these pictures absolutely fantastic, and shows a real kind of connection between the two of you, and that gimmick between the two of you really works. And of course, you were there the night she became the Pro Wrestling Chaos Maiden of Chaos. And celebrations were had after the match, I'm sure. But I mean, talk to me a little bit about, and I think we'll go back to Dragon Pro in a minute, but I think alongside Dragon Pro, there was Attack Pro Wrestling. And like I say, Attack Pro Wrestling were the first proper UK indie group that I went to back in 2014. And of course, you know, you go and see All Star at the Town Hall and WWE when they were on these shores. But Attack Pro Wrestling was the first proper UK indie show that I went to. So straight away, I had this bond with them and this connection with them. And you did as well as a performer, pretty much straight out the gate. And you know, they're known for their wild and wacky matches and gimmick shows and batshit crazy performers. And but what they are known for also is entertaining the fans. And some of the best wrestlers from South Wales and across the UK performed for Attack, including yourself, Sid. And in a nutshell, tell us a bit about your experience with Attack Pro Wrestling and why it's so close to your heart.
Well, look, Attack was great because that was always a goal, to get on Attack. And I don't think I'd be the only one to say is, at the training school, if you got on Attack, it was a big pat on the back. And everybody felt that. So that was always a goal for me. And I had a squash match against Dan Maloney in the Frog and Fiddle. He just came in. It was a minute and a half, and he squashed me. And then I went backstage, and Pete Dunne was there, and he came up to me and he said, like, "Oh, like you did a really good job. Like, I really like the way you sold. Like, you made him look like a monster." And he gave me a little bit of feedback, and it was so I was sort of like starstruck, because even though I'd seen Pete at previous shows, you know, I still had that respect for him as a performer. And the fact that he came up to me and wanted to talk to me about this minute and a half squash match, I thought I must have made an impression. And then, because I did so well in that squash match, it became a gimmick. And that's what developed into the Ring Crew Express, where I kept getting beat, and then we brought other people into it, like August Jackson and Clay McLeod and Billy Hayes and people like that, where we were like a little group of we were the job squad basically of Attack Pro Wrestling. and then it just steamrolled. And you know, when you got something good, you got to go with it, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to bring up a question now. This does take us back to your character, your persona. And this is from a Dan Patterson, who sent us a question, watching us live via Facebook Live. So thank you, Dan. Do you find your gimmick is therapeutic to express those inner demons that people may deal with behind closed doors? So do you find your gimmick is kind of therapeutic in any way, to answer Dan's question?
100%. 100% is it. It's almost like my own sort of therapy for myself. You know, I get to go in the ring and let out everything that is what I perceive as bad in me. I get to go out there and leave it in the ring, and also not to get too dark, but obviously when you're in the ring, you're dealing with pain as well. You know, you're getting hit, you're getting slammed, and it's that kind of like you're sort of cleansing yourself, in a way. Not to get too deep, but that's how I feel. And I come back through the curtain, and I feel like I'm just a lot nicer, happier, more fulfilled in myself.
Yeah.
This all sounds a bit sadomasochistic, but I hope you understand what I'm getting across.
Absolutely. And Dan, again, since there's a second question, any best advice that you can give to a new wrestler regarding promos? So obviously, you know, all wrestlers that are any good at promos had to start somewhere and had to deliver their first interview or first promo. Any advice that you can offer down there regarding promos for a new wrestler?
I guess if you know your character, that always helps, because you almost speak through them rather than yourself. So if you've got a strong character and you know what they're doing, you can. That always helps to deliver a promo. But I'd also say one of my personal gripes is people doing wrestling promos, like always the same vernacular, the same sort of
cliched lines,
and stuff. A lot of people that watch wrestling should watch films and adapt that, because you'll never watch Daniel Day-Lewis or Marlon Brando or Dustin Hoffman and be like, oh, he's reading off a script, even though they are. You're 100% invested in what they're doing in that scene. And I think that can be translated to wrestling. And I think it's something that wrestling needs to be caught up with in a way.
Yeah.
Just make it seem more real, you know?
Absolutely.
We all know it's fake. We all know it's fake, but we want that suspension of disbelief like you do when you go and watch a film.
Yeah. And I suppose before that, I suppose try and think of a character, have some sort of character to channel in them promos, I suppose. But
that just helps.
Some good advice.
That just helps with it, you know.
Yeah, some good advice. I want to focus on 2019 now, because certainly in my opinion, I believe that 2019 was a massive breakout year for you. You were super busy, had a ton of matches, probably your busiest year to date, had a ton of success as well, which we will talk about the championships. But did you have a feeling going into 2019 that was going to be a good year for you, based on the momentum that you'd built up, or maybe the experience that you'd built up over the last year or two before that? Everything just seemed to click in 2019, didn't it?
Yeah, I guess it did, looking back on it, but I didn't realize it at the time, I suppose. I just like it just happened. I wasn't self-aware about it. It just kind of happened. Like I said to you earlier, like I'm very in the moment and thinking about it in that moment. So maybe this is something I should do. I should look back and go, that was cool how I got to that point. But I don't know, the way my brain works, I don't think about it like that. But, it was a good year, like you know, with Attack and stuff like that. So
yeah, and I mean, like I say, just looking at 2019, some of the championships that you won there, like I say, just some solo pictures of yourself, and then of course with yourself and the wonderful Jay Joshua, where you picked up the Dragon Pro tag team titles, which you held for a remarkable length of time. I think well over 336 days I've got there as the Dragon Pro tag team champions. And then to cap off the year, you became double champs, because you became the Attack Pro wrestling tag team champions with, is it August Jackson? I think I've got his name right there.
Yeah, August Jackson, yeah.
And like I say, there are both championships. But I'd say a tremendous year, very successful year, certainly with Jay and certainly with August there, two wonderful tag teams. And like I say, just to kind of cap it all off, being double champs.
Yeah, no, it was great. And what was so good about it as well is during that year, I was doing two completely different gimmicks, you know. And what I'm quite personally proud about is you get a lot of the same fans that go to the same shows. So all the people that were going to Dragon Pro were also going to Attack, and they were also going to Chaos. And the fact that I managed to play Septic Sid with Jay Joshua at Dragon Pro, but then literally sometimes the night after be Sid Oakley in the Ring Crew, which is a completely different character, and people bought it. That was sort of like a feather in my cap for me. Like look, like you'd never see Septic Sid smile and put his thumbs up like that. Do you know what I mean?
No.
but the same fans bought it. They were invested in the character. They suspended their disbelief, and yeah, I hung my hat on that. I was quite proud of myself for that. And also, I had great partners. Like I did enjoy tagging with JJ, even though he never listens to me. But
such a great guy. I've met him several times backstage
I
at
love
many
JJ.
shows. Really top guy.
JJ's one of my closest guys as well, like in the business. But yeah, if he's watching or if he hears about this, you do never listen to me. So
I'm going to get him on the show. I'll get his version of events.
Yeah, get his
side of the story. And I briefly flash this up, but you're also featured, and I think this might have been early 2019, so before the year had really got started, in a magazine article in a fairly well-known wrestling journal. I think it's FSM. I can't remember exactly what it used to be called, but I did buy several copies. But it wasn't Power Slam for me. But I still bought it. And like I say, I mean, being featured in an article as a bit of a spotlight for, you know, watch this guy, future up and coming star. That must have been a pretty cool moment for you.
That it was a really cool moment. Like, I don't want to like mark out too much, but when I found out that I was going to be in it, I took it with a pinch of salt. Like, I was there like, oh, like maybe, like, let's see what happens. But then when I went to WH Smith and bought the magazine, and I don't know, there's something about seeing yourself in a magazine that everybody can buy. And I was probably the only person that bought it from that particular WH Smith, but that didn't matter to me. The fact that I was there in print, it just gives you that kind of, you know, that boost. Like, yeah, you're doing the right thing. You made the right choices. Your career's progressing the way you wanted it to. Yeah, it was cool. It was cool.
Absolutely. Like I say, 2019 was a blinder of a year for you. Going into 2020, everything looked to be heading in the right direction, building towards another stellar year, momentum behind you. And after such a strong couple of years, 2018, 2019, going into 2020, then, of course, we all know what happened. The pandemic struck, the world came to a halt. Tell us how that hit you in particular after having all that momentum, and then for well over a year, nothing.
Well, like, I was actually really lucky. Like, obviously it was a hard time for everybody on the planet,
Yeah.
you know, going through that, and it's easy to be bitter about it. And I was bitter for a bit because I felt like things were going so well, and then that kind of cut it off. But the advantage that I had was, at the time, I lived in a house with 5 other wrestlers. I lived with Nico Angelo, Billy Hayes, CJ Tumbus, Mulligan, Dani Luna. We all lived together in a house. So the wrestling didn't stop because we were all talking about it. We were all training together. We were all watching matches together. And Dragon Pro did a great thing where they were doing like what we're doing now, like, you know, online sort of classes and stuff, or we all got on Skype or whatever. So even though it wasn't the same, I was very fortunate in that regard because I was never too removed from it. So that was cool.
Yeah. And during that kind of layoff, that period of a year, not quite a year and a half, but 15, 16 months, did it give you time to reflect on your time in the business so far? Did you do much soul searching, or did you use the time to think about how you'd like to present yourself upon your return, if and when that were to happen? Tell us about kind of where your mind was at, your thought process, especially with regards to professional wrestling, and the time that you were kind of away from the ring.
Well, when everything started coming back, in all honesty, I don't think I was ready for it.
Really?
Yeah, like you'd think that you'd be like chomping at the bit to get back and get in the ring and stuff, but my after not doing it for so long, my confidence had kind of been shaken a bit. I don't want to say I was thinking negative thoughts, but I was just kind of there like, am I as good as I thought I was pre-pandemic, you know, and it's something that I'm still struggling with now since it. This has probably been my quietest year, but that's been a personal choice of mine because I've had to take a step back and sort of sort out my own shit, and make sure I'm ready to give it full commitment and come and go, because I like, this is what I want, this is what I want to do. But the pandemic, it really altered my whole mind frame on the business, so to speak. Not in a bad way.
No, where would you say your head is at now in terms of your position within the business, your position within the UK wrestling business, and more importantly, where you feel you are as a performer, as a professional wrestler, as an overall entertainer and performer?
Well, I'd like to be more places, and I'd like to be doing bigger and better things, but that's always going to be the case, no matter how, no matter where you are. But what I've had to really do the past year and a half is really focus on myself, and then try to pursue. And after you've got yourself sorted, everything else is extra, you know. 100%. And I've really had to take a step back and go, right, let's sort you out, let's do you. Let's make sure everything is okay in that regard, and then you can fucking go and just let them have it.
Yeah. Love your mindset. Absolutely. Very sensible approach. I want to talk about your move set now, because I don't know if it is off air or maybe earlier on you kind of said you've only got about 4 moves.
My 4 moves.
Your 4 moves of doom. I'm gonna read out some of your signature moves, and certainly now I don't know how you would do.
This is going to be a really short bit, isn't it?
No, not at all. But just some moves that kind of really struck me as being quite unique to yourself, but really impactful, and kind of really jumped out at me. And I don't know what you call it, but you've got this spinning back elbow, like a cyclone back elbow. I think you described it once as the flying elbow attack thingy. But then you've got the running leaping knees, the missile drop kick, which is just absolutely awesome. The double underhook DDT, the scorpion deathlock that you use quite often. So an array of moves there, some very impactful, some high spots there as well. Maybe 1 or 2 submission holds as well. But how did you kind of formulate your move set? Obviously, it fits well with your character, but some pretty cool moves there, if you don't mind me saying.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that, because I'm not known in the industry as a move guy, so to speak. But I don't know. It happened gradually. Like that was one thing that I never really thought about, like, oh, what moves am I going to do? I know a lot of people do think about that, but I never really thought about that. The main things I think about in matches are moments and facials and selling and things like that. Like, the moves are almost secondary, and obviously you have to have moves to have a match. But I just kind of, you know, when I started wrestling, I put a sharpshooter on one day, and I went backstage and somebody said, oh, that's a really sick sharpshooter. And I went, oh, okay, I'll keep doing that then. Or, you know, I did the drop kick off the top rope, and people went, oh, you've got a great drop kick off the top rope. So I went, oh, okay, I'll keep doing that. I never really formatively thought about it. It all just kind of, it's like there was loads of jigsaw pieces, and I was just putting them where people told me to put them, you know.
But it all works. You can, that missile drop kick is pretty sweet, I've got to say. And a very Bret Hart-esque scorpion deathlock, or maybe Sting, but I'm sure Bret Hart.
But, Sting guy.
Well, you know, I kind of grew up in that sort of era as well. But we had a question sent through to us before we went live, Sid, and I'm going to bring it up now. And it's from a good friend of the show and a huge fan of the South Wales wrestling scene, and it's Richie. Any plans on you making a return to Attack pro wrestling. Now, I know that they are a big part of your career, big part of your history. They've recently made a return earlier on this year. They had a double bill around WrestleMania weekend and several other shows since. I don't think we've seen a Septic Sid on any of the more recent Attack shows. I'm sure it's a desire of yours.
Yeah, absolutely. But like, you know, I'd like to, but there's so much talent. There's so much talent. I realize, you know, like people that are doing a lot more than me and training a lot more than me. Because, like I said, I've taken a bit of a step back this year. I've had a bit of a quieter year just to focus on myself. So it's not really fair if I sort of, you know, come and slide in over other people that are, you know, working their bollocks off, basically. I would like to, but the decision's not mine. You know, it's up to people that run Attack. So
yeah, I think Richie would definitely love to see you in an Attack ring.
Well,
sure.
I like to think that you know, the history of Ring Crew Express and things like that. I like to think that I'm a character that people would like to see back.
Yeah.
But you know, that it's up to the people that run it, and they, you know, there's no ill will. Like I said, there's a lot of talent, and everybody's got to work for their spot. And you know, I did think that I had enough equity to be a character, but I'm not gonna disregard anybody that's working hard and getting on them shows instead of me.
It will happen when it happens. Absolutely, it will happen when it happens. And
yeah.
Alex Perez is watching us live via YouTube. Thank you, Alex, regular viewer. Thoughts on Wild Boar, and do you want to face Boar again in the future? Well, when was the last time you faced Wild Boar? And to answer Alex's question, I'm sure you'd love to have another tangle with him soon.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think the last time I faced him was at Chaos pre-pandemic.
Right.
We were the opener. We had a quick 10-minute opening match, but it was sprightly and it was fun. And yeah, like, you know, Boar's one of the best, isn't he? You know, he's great. I don't know him that well. As it sounds weird, even though he's or was one of my trainers for a long time. I kind of always held him in that regard.
Yeah.
So I don't know him that well as a person. But he's always been good to me, and he's trained me well, and I really respect his work. So yeah, obviously I'd love to wrestle Boar again.
Absolutely. And before we kind of wrap up, so we're starting to wind down this episode with Septic Sid Oakley, episode 311. Are there some really, really kind of like key or proud moments that you've had from your career so far that you kind of can really hang your hat on and think, you know, that was really cool, and I'm very proud of those?
Probably the last man standing match with Nico is up there. That was the culmination of so many things, and working with somebody that I'm really close with outside of the ring, and bringing that all together, the whole storyline that developed before it. I really enjoyed that. Another one, Attack, when we won the Money in the Bank briefcase in Walkabout in Cardiff, because I'd gone to shows as a fan when they were doing, you know, the Attack shows in Walkabout, and I was always there like, oh, that's awesome. And then to be there and, you know, win this prestigious match, so to speak, that was really cool. But yeah, like, they're probably the two highlights, in all honesty.
Absolutely. And many more to come. But just a quick reminder of who my next guests are. And I'm also going to announce my August lineup, which is just around the corner, of course. And I've got one more interview in the month of July. And that, of course, is one of Joel Redmond's trainees, Nathan Angel. And I know that Sid's been on one or two cars with Nathan Angel, a tremendous young talent that really is going to take the scene by storm in the next year or so, doing wonderful things already. But in the month of August, my first guest, now let me just double check my dates here, on Friday the 11th of August, because I'm going to take the first couple of weeks of August August off to celebrate my birthday. But my first guest of August is going to be KM Lane, and he's going to be joining me live on the Wrestling with Johners Friday the 11th at 8 p.m. Wonderful young talent, been on the scene a short while, being trained by Mike Bird over in Catch 22. And I have seen KM Lane a number of times up and down the country, so can't wait to see and hear about KM Lane's story. And then I've got this guy here, Tony Sin. We've got to say, renowned performer for Sacrifice Pro and for UBW over in Biggleswade. So many tremendous performers have come out of the Square One Academy, and Tony's going to be talking to me on Monday the 14th. My next guest, the following Monday, in fact, let's just bring up this man here, somebody that Sid knows very well. Flynn Burden will be gracing us with his presence. The Flynn Daddy will be joining me on Monday, the 21st. And be prepared for some weird and wonderful language as we hear about Flynn Burden's story and his journey in the professional wrestling business. And to cap off the month, you did briefly see a picture of her, but there she is, the wonderful Francesca, one of the best ring announcers in the UK. Ring announcers all over the country, including Rev Pro and Southwest Wrestling and various others. But Francesca will be joining me on Tuesday, the 29th. So, yeah, I'd say not as many interviews as I usually do in a standard month, but I'm taking the first couple of weeks off just to relax. But 4 wonderful guests there. Any thoughts on any of those? I'm sure you know one or two of them fairly well.
Well, I used to actually live with Flynn Burden for a year. So when I first moved to Cardiff, we were roommates. So we could have done an entire episode on me and Flynn living together, to be honest. But
there we go. Hopefully we get some of them stories when Flynn comes onto the show in August. But some really fun guests. I'm already working on my lineup for September, October, and November. So many wonderful names will be coming onto the Wrestling with Johners podcast live every single week, sometimes multiple interviews. But Sid, it's been wonderful speaking to you on the Wrestling with Johners podcast this week. But before we let you go, an opportunity for you to throw out any social media handles where we can find you, where we can say hi, where we can learn more about Septic Sid Oakley. And if it helps, I do have a little ticker running along the bottom of the screen. But tell us where we can find you, say hi, and learn more.
Well, I'm a bit of a technophobe, so I do only have Twitter at Septic Sid 91. So that's probably the best place to find me. Next time I'll be wrestling is at Lakefest for SWW in early August, I believe, and that's always a really fun weekend. So if anybody's watching that is at Lakefest, come along, watch the wrestling. It's a good time. It's a bit of a break from the music and beer. You just come and boo at me all day. So
yeah, they always draw a nice crowd at Lakefest, don't they? And it's always a fun show, and get to see the very best of Southwest Wrestling's amazing roster and amazing talent, including Septic Sid Oakley. But something's just falling down the stairs there. That's obviously my cue to wrap up.
That is my cat. That is causing disruption right now.
But Sid, if you've got any final words for my fans, viewers, listeners out there, or your family, friends, supporters, for any final words from Septic Sid, what would they be, my friend?
Just thanks, John, for having me on. I really appreciate the platform, and it was nice to just chat shit for an hour. And
absolutely.
It was fun reliving some of them pictures, which some of them I haven't seen in years. But yeah, that's it really. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
You're
honestly,
very welcome. But Septic Sid Oakley, the SWW Openweight champion, thank you for being an awesome guest, and I'll see you at a show somewhere down the road, my friend.
I'm sure I will. Yeah.
Take care, Sid. Thank you.